Hello. I'm very sorry that I haven't uploaded in 2 or 3 weeks. That will not become a habit. But I've been busy with things, including a couple of projects. I've been trying to get the Old English short film closer to done, and I think I am nearly done with it. And I've also been working on this project, which is a kind of follow-up to something I did this time last year. Um, Obviously, this is a bit shorter because American English as a divergent thing hasn't existed since the 1300s, and the last video traced all the way back to the 1300s. Um, I'm going to upload a follow-up video in the next week or so, going into detail about how I've approached this and how I've tried to reconstruct certain things. There's not as much research, as far as I can find, into the development of American English before the advent of sound recording as there is into the development of Southeastern British English before sound recording. So I've had to do a bit of my own interpretation here. Um, if you have any specific questions about specific sounds and how they're reconstructed, by all means ask them in the comments, and I'll try and answer some of them in the video in a week or so's time, or a few days' time. And otherwise, I hope you enjoy this attempt at a kind of non-city specific northeastern US accent developing over time. Yeah, I'll include the IPA on the screen. I don't expect everybody to follow along with the IPA, but it's just for people who are interested in phonetics and stuff. I'm bound to have made a few little mistakes. I've tried to make it fairly narrow. It's more of a phonetic transcription than a phonemic transcription, so I've included tapped T's and stuff like that. I've included alveolar tap symbols. But yeah, whenever I do these things, I always leave in a couple of mistakes. So there's probably a couple of vowels that are completely wrong in the transcription, but I've combed them over and I've tried my best. So hopefully it's semi-enjoyable. And thank you very much indeed for watching. I hope you have a good Christmas, or if you don't celebrate Christmas, I hope you just have a good week.
The truth is, if you want to know the truth, I came to America expecting to go back to Kent at some stage. I was afeard of staying here longer than 3 months, but to tell you the truth, I don't mind staying here forever now. You'll never see open space like this in Kent, anywhere at home for that matter. The only thing I do regret is that your livestock are in more danger here than they are in Kent, from wolves and so forth, and from neighbours. I've a neighbour I had when I came first came close to stealing a sheep and would have had it if I hadn't been on my way past at the right time. So my neighbours were a problem at first. A man looking to buy my land was a problem for a while. Because I was a foreigner, he thought I'd let the land go easily, which I didn't. The biggest difference I noticed at the start was the breed of sheep. Yes.
My mother was your great-grandmother, and she was still alive when you were born. And the interesting thing about that is that you were born, or you were due to be born a month or so after you were. And it was in that month that your great-grandmother died. And the moment you were born, she started complaining she was unwell. And she joked that you'd made her unwell. She said the same thing a week later, but it wasn't a joke the second time. The worst thing was it gave her cause to hate your mother even more than she already did. But after she died, in a way, it didn't strike me as a tragedy, because she spent 30 years looking for an excuse to hate your mother, and she found one right at the end. And your mother joked that was the reason she died, because at long last she'd done what she wanted to do, and dredged up an excuse to shout at her.
We've always had problems with the river, even when we lived miles down the way. When I trapped in it, I lived near to a crossing between two major towns, and I trapped near the crossing, not too near, of course. But I would often pass the crossing on the way there, meet people as they went across the river, and they never managed to get the place of crossing right, because there was a very deceptive place downstream of where they went across, which looked to my memory very much like it ought to be the ford. So twice I think I was the one that ran back home to get help when some poor son of a gun went into the river on his horse, and the horse didn't know how deep it would be. And I never heard of people dying there, but I'd be surprised if it never happened once. But I would believe it was rare. Of course, we didn't live in the same place back then. We lived across the river from here, and the nearest bridge was miles and miles downriver, so we committed to it. We said we'd make a bridge, and my grandfather said, "All right, whatever you say." But we made it. It took us about a year to make the structure because we kept on running out of what we needed. All the while, the way I made my money back then was as a farm laborer. I traveled quite some way back then because farm work was hard to come by. Because of the nature of my work, I moved so often. I worried I wouldn't find a woman to marry. I stopped being a laborer when I was 30 or so. I claimed to everyone that it was because I had aspirations elsewhere. But the truth of the situation was I just wanted to get married. My boss invited me into his office to tell me I'd blocked this kind of drainage ditch thing that maybe 40 years ago, which he told me specifically, go and move that pile of dirt into that drainage ditch. And I said to him, that's where the water drains away. Isn't that going to be a problem? And he said no, so I did what he said and completely blocked off this drainage ditch. And he called me into his office and started giving me all this. And I think I had a problem with, not with the way he was saying it to me, but with the way he was looking at me when he said it. He gave me this look like I'd scorned him somehow, and I knew I'd scorned him, and I was just being evasive and feeling guilty when I didn't feel guilty at all. I didn't think I'd done anything wrong. So I was just sitting there in his office trying to keep a straight face and not laugh while he basically dressed me down for something I'd done that I didn't think was wrong. And after a while, he finished talking and gave me this look and walked out. And I was just sitting there like the second the door closed, I just burst out laughing. And I think he passed the window then and saw me laughing through the window. And that's how I lost that job.